let's get started. First of all, you will need MSI Afterburner. Don't worry, it's called MSI, but it will work with any Nvidia GPU. So I'm gonna link this down below. You want to download the latest beta, so 4.6.6. Open MSI Afterburner, and you will probably see a quite different interface. Let's use the same skin, it's just easier. So find wherever the setting button is, go all the way to the right, user interface, and select this Afterburner V3 skin. Let's just do things with the same one. Afterwards, you will want to also download Tech Power Up GPU Z. I just like the way sensors I just like the layout, which you'll find over here. It can give you a lot of useful information which we'll need throughout the process. In the background, by the way, I will constantly have Cyberpunk running. Everything is maxed out with DLAA, although we are obviously at 1080p, which is the only way for us to keep the window up there. But it's enough, because let's just quickly go, for example, to the default setting of the GPU. You can see it's sucking 500 watts for pretty much no reason whatsoever, as we're gonna improve that behavior with our undervolts. Right. Once again, download MSI Afterburner, and then once you actually click, press Ctrl and F, you will finally see the voltage curve. This is something I've made for extreme power efficiency. Don't worry about this one too much. One thing I want you to notice is that mine will probably look slightly different from yours. I believe you will be starting at 500 as the baseline, and that is just what the graph is displaying. It's not actually what's happening under here. You will still have exactly the same curve if you use the settings I'm gonna use. If you want to match though the way I see this curve, you can go all the way here. TSPC, local disk, program files, MSI Afterburner. You can open afterburning.config and Ctrl F. You want to press VFC, and then you will want to tweak these parameters. All this does is changing what you see over here in the graph. It's not necessary for undervolting, but if you want to follow step by step and also see what your card is doing down here, feel free to match these settings. Right, how do you decide, because obviously I am running a 5090 right now, but you might be running a different card. So how do you decide what performance to target? It's fairly simple. I want you to type on Google your card, type Undervolt, and then you will find plenty of examples on Reddit and other forums of people running Undervolt on their card, and you can pretty much figure out what is the best setting. This is a 5090. I posted this guide a month or so ago, and you know, my own findings and the finding of many other people that helped me is that the best setting to match stock is to run 2827 at this specific voltage. Now the goal with the undervolt, okay, let me actually go through this whilst we're here. So this setting is one people with a 5090 often run, and in Cyberpunk specifically, I did this yesterday with different settings than the one displayed right now up there. This specific one runs stock performance, in many games even actually higher than stock, and it makes us save, in Cyberpunk at least, 75 watts, which is obviously quite nice, but we can toggle this in game right now. When I press reset, you will see the curve going back to stock. So this is stock on my specific 5090, which is a Vanguard, and we're all the way up there to 500 watts, and the clock is at 2790, as you can also see over here. Then we go to my preferred Undervolt, and we're going all the way back to 425 watts. The displayed clock speed over there is less than what it was on stock, but the performance is essentially the same. We're at 106 FPS. We go back to stock and we go back to 106, 107. We're there. So how do we actually dial in these settings, and how do you dial in the settings for whatever other card you have? Open Afterburner. This will be closed when you open it. So open Afterburner. This is what you'll see. I need you to uncheck this over here. If it's green, make sure it's blank and click apply. It will just mean that when you reboot the system, it will start off with the stock settings. So until we're fully dialed in with the Undervolt, I want you to make sure when you're rebooting the system, you're starting with stock settings. I don't want you to do something silly and then, you know, you just don't want to mess anything up until you're sure you're stable. So uncheck this one until you know your Undervolt is rock solid. So you want to hold control, press F, and you'll be greeted with a curve. The curve, the stock curve on most GPUs does not make any sense. We are going all the way here, as you can see. Where is it? Where is the voltage? It's down there. Let me move this up. Right. So we're using 1.01 millivolts, which is obviously directly correlated to the wattage that is being drawn by the card, to achieve 2.7. It is extremely unnecessary. Obviously, the vendor needs to make this type of graph because they need to ensure, this type of voltage curve, because they need to ensure that even the worst silicon will be able to get to this area without much trouble. But we know that our GPU can match this performance all the way back from 1.2 to actual 0.89, saving almost 100 watt. So that's what we want. Now, once we establish what's our target frequency and what's our voltage, how do we actually draw this? So let's go back to stock. There are a couple of things that we want to note down. First of all, we want to figure out what is our idle voltage. Idle voltage on a 5090 is usually 0.8 to 0.81. So this is idle, this is idle. I don't want you guys to touch this one over here. I want this to stay pretty much there. It will go up on its own while we move this range, but I don't want you to move this up yourselves. So what we want to do right now on a 5090, and you should be able to translate these things on your own card, but what I want you to do is to hold left shift, left click, and make sure that you have 0.15 within the range, and then you want to make sure you have 0.895 within the range. Then let go of left click and let go of shift. Everything in blue will go up together. So grab 895 and go all the way up. Now we are targeting 2827, but Afterburner is a soft lock. I should call it probably a hard lock on frequency, so you cannot go above a certain threshold. So in my specific case, 895 will not go above 2827. So even if I apply right now, this will not stay there. Everything will be shifted slightly below so that this can be up here, this can be further down. So this 2832 will actually become 2827 as I click apply. Let's make sure, obviously, that's the case. Now, whatever it's on the right hand side of the curve, needs to be brought down to this level, because as you can see we have applied, so we are already seeing the effect in game. So what we want to do is to hold shift and drag all the way and then bring it all the way down, and as soon as I click apply, you will see this going dramatically down, this going down quite a bit, and this will not really go much further down. Here we go. We're essentially at the same performance, but we are in a much better place. You might be wondering, we dropped the clock quite noticeably, but the performance is still there. Why is that the case? It used to be the case for most higher end GPUs where it's not all about clock speed, core clock speed or memory speed. It's also about the amount of shader units they have. It's also about the amount of ROPs they have, etc, etc, etc. So more components are actually on the GPU, and then the less is what the core speed has to do, if you understand what I'm saying. So core speed becomes just one of the many factors in a GPU that is so full of stuff. Yes, I just said stuff. I can help you with undervolting, but probably not the most technical person. Now, that's our undervolt done. And as you can see, as we were saying before, we are now matching our stock performance using less amount of power. Now we can also add some clock on our RAM, on a VRAM, and as you can see, the power consumption will not really go up that much. We are at around 4 to 3, 4 to 5, and when we add the RAM, we're gonna have a slight improvement there and a slight increase there. So adding extra VRAM is not necessary. Sometimes you will not even bother. The Founders Edition 5090, the VRAM does get pretty toasty, so you might not want to bother there. It's still within the safe margins, but you might not want to bother. So as far as our undervolt matching our clock speed, matching our stock performance, I hope we're all on the same page. But obviously that's not the only thing you can do. You can also target different areas. Let's say we want to go for the best possible efficiency. What you want to do is to once again reset. Make sure you always reset before you start with new settings. We found that the most efficient setting on a 5090 is 2242 by 85. So we find the 85, we select all the way until here. 85 is there. That's all we select. So as we said, 2242. You can go a bit above, because 2242 anyway is the cap. So if you go even up here, it's still gonna lock you all the way down there. You can also bring this, you can also flatten the curve, by the way, before you click apply on this section. So now I have everything set up, so that once I click apply, here we are. So this over here, as you've seen, by the way, even the sections I didn't lift, so I didn't touch this. This should have still been down here. But with the way Afterburner works, with the way the curve works, with the way the GPU works, even if you don't touch idle settings, they will go a bit further up on their own. It's like the gears in a car. You cannot shift from fifth gear to first gear. You need something in between, and that's why they go up on their own, just to make the curve more smooth. We have lost some performance, but we have gained a lot when it comes to power. And you know, we're still above the performance that we'd have on a 4090. This was found to be on a 5090 the most efficient setting. I hope everything is clear. You know, these are, I mean, you can save all these ones. You can press save and you can select where you want to save it. I have several profiles for a 5090, especially for such a power hungry card. For example, profile number 1 for me is the most efficient. I brought all the way down the power limit. This is the profile I only use in idle. I brought all the way down the power limit, all the way down, as far as down as I can, the VRAM. Doesn't really matter, but it's just for idle, so why not? And that's where we are. Let me show you again something while we have Cyberpunk running. Then I will explain why we lifted the curve the way we did in idle, and how much better this specific setting is in idle. Let's see if we quickly want to go back to the stock. So we are 500. That's the speed, that's the performance. Other profiles I have, there is this one over here, which tops in Afterburner at 2895. It pretty much matches the stock frequency, obviously much more efficient, and it also adds the VRAM. So let's see, 110 with this Undervolt, 108, 109 without. So with this profile over here, we are ahead of stock and a bit more efficient. But you know, you can also go a bit further. If you want more performance, there's also this other profile which I did, and we are at 0.945, and that's the core frequency. So we are still noticeably more efficient than stock, but the core speed is much higher, but the gain in performance is totally negligible. That's why this over here, for me, either one of these two, they are still what you want for a 5090. Let's talk about idle, and afterwards I'm also gonna show you a more efficient game, a lighter game, so you can see how much improvement you can also get with lesser demanding games. And by the way, you can see that behavior I was talking about before. This is the peak, this is what we selected, but if you follow the line over here, you will see where we are actually at. We're not up here because the temperature is much higher than the lowest possible. And also over here, you can see we're at 0.89, we are not at 0.895. So I'm gonna close Cyberpunk, and we're gonna look at idle behavior, idleish, because I still need to screen record. We're gonna close GOG properly, and we're gonna close Steam as well. The only thing we have is screen recording, Afterburner. We're gonna put this down there, close this one over there. Okay, so excellent. We are back at idling at 0.8. So let's idle at stock with the stock curve. Let me close Riva Tuner. Okay, let's idle at stock. Let's clear history here, reset here as well. Perfect. So we're idling while screen recording, which is pretty much a similar output of performance which you'll have while browsing the internet or while watching a simple video on YouTube, we're also going to do this test. So at stock right now we are consuming about 37. With our preferred Undervolt, we go from that 37 and we are pretty much still there, if not a bit higher. And you're probably wondering, why are we higher? Well, quite simply, if we are lifting this area here, this area will also automatically be lifted. So in order to achieve the best possible efficiency when idling, that's why I want you to have this other profile, which you can try and match, which was our most efficient profile over here. So 2242 at this specific voltage, with the also power limit all the way down. And if I let go of everything, you will see how this will end up consuming ever so slightly less than stock. Now, where I want you to see the big difference and why we did things the way we did is this. Yeah, it's pretty much settling the same as idle. It's not really going much further down. Where you'll see the difference is while playing a video. Let's hope nothing terrible comes out when I go on YouTube. Oh, perfect. Right, 4K, opening a window, which is a pretty common use case. Anything weird here? No. Perfect. Right, let's go back to stock. At stock, we are currently 57, 64, 65. That's the range, between 55 and 67. Let's go to the optimize idle settings, and you'll see they're going down by quite a bit. So once again, for idle on desktop, feel free to use this setting. Extra thing, open settings over here, go all the way to profiles, and yes, there is this very nice option to select the automatic profile management. This works fairly well. I often stay within the 2D profile even while watching videos, and it will launch the 3D profile when playing games. So this is fairly reliable. So feel free to try. The way I have it set up right now, I have the extremely efficient profile for 2D, and I have the preferred profile for 3D. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you. Let's go to our favorite setting. So this is once again what we use as our base Undervolt, with our technique of only lifting what we want to lift and not lifting the entire thing. So look down there, power, we are between 47, 48, 47, 48, and sometimes we go up to 52, 51. Let's instead use the more commonly used undervolting technique and see where that takes us. 2827, all the way down, and yeah, here we go. So we are still essentially idling, and as you can see, we are not going back to that 47. We are staying more, around 50. Is it a big difference? Absolutely not. It's totally negligible, but it is a measurable difference. So let's go back to our preferred method. And you'll see tiny difference, 3 or 2 watts of difference. Doesn't matter at all, but still I want to show you this way of lifting the curve, just because since we're doing it, we might as well try and do it in the best possible way. And by the way, once you're idling anyway, I don't want you to use this, I don't want you to use what we had before, I want you to use profile number 1. This keeps everything down and as power efficient as possible. Negligible difference, but as you're trying to optimize everything, you might as well try and do your best. Let's launch a light game and see how the Undervolt performs in such scenario. Let's start with the stock settings. Right. So, running at stock, we are maxing out the game because it's very light, while only using 45% of the card. Regardless, we are running at 280 watts. We don't care about this number, because once we lower our clock speed, this number will increase. All we care is of maxing our frame cap and minimizing the voltage. So let's go for our preferred undervolt on the 5090. We went from 280 to 228. Still obviously the same frame rate. We're already saving a lot of power even on a less demanding game. But for these specific games, that's why you might want to create other profiles. So down here we have an even more efficient one, which is the one at 2.5 gig and at 0.87. So in this case, we go from 228 all the way down to 208, which is a tiny difference, obviously. And it kind of shows that we can go even much further, and we can use actually the same profile that we use in idle, with everything turned down as far down as possible, and we're still comfortably within the margin. We still have 40% extra with these settings to match the frame rate that we selected. So for less demanding games, you essentially want to go as far down as possible. That's why undervolting is always the answer, because you might think, all right, can I achieve this with a power limit? Let's try. Let's try right now. Let's reset, which takes us all the way back there. Let's go all the way down with the power limit. Let's hit apply, and oh, that did barely anything. Undervolting is even more beneficial in less demanding games, because we weren't hitting the power limit at all. Power limit right now is doing barely anything. Let's reset it, and from 255 we go to 280. Power limit in this case does barely anything. The main takeaway I have is that undervolting should be called curve optimization, because when you hear undervolting, people always think you're not gonna get the same performance as stock, you're just there to save power, but that's not the case. That's not the case at all. We can often get better performance for less power, and it's essentially nobody's fault why that's the case. Like, we cannot really blame Nvidia or AMD for giving us such random frequency curves, because obviously they have to make sure that the very best silicon and the very worst silicon still performs within the same margin. So my card might only need a certain voltage to get a certain frequency, and other cards might need more or less. Another thing, once we're here, for the 5090, 50 series as well as the 40 series, there was something hard-coded on the GPU itself. So for example, I used to have a 5090 Founders Edition, and the 5090 Founders Edition was able to run 2827, and it did that at 0.89. If I try and do that on the Vanguard, it takes me down of a step. And to get to that 2827, I need to use 895. The reason is that Nvidia, as far as I'm aware, checks the cards. Every card is binned. So mine is of a lesser bin than those cards which can get to 2827, not at this voltage, but at the other voltage a step below. Does it make a difference? Yes, in benchmarks it does. In games it doesn't. As you've seen, it doesn't matter. Whatever, as long as you're within the same range, you're totally fine. You're not going to see a difference of one frame once you're already above 150. Don't get too stressed out about these things. Right, how do you test that your Undervolt works? You test it simply by playing the games you want to play. Don't waste your time playing something you want to play just to test the Undervolt. For a very, very specific reason. This Undervolt, for example, it might be rock solid in this range, in the range where, for example, this frequency is targeted for this voltage, and maybe a given game will only over in this zone. But if you have a game that suddenly, either in a menu or whatever transition, tries to hit this speed for this voltage, maybe that's when it's going to crash. And while this area is perfectly fine, this specific combination is not fine. So let's say you run this combination on the 5090. Once again, the usual 2827 per 895. And let's say it doesn't work for you and it crashes. First of all, make sure it's crashing in a game that you trust, that you know has a good engine, and not that it's crashing simply because it's buggy. So make sure it crashes in a reliable setting. And if that's the case, and you suspect it's the Undervolt, instead of going for 2827 at 895, feel free to go for 2827 at 9. What that will do, it's also targeting slightly easier to run frequency for a lower voltage, and so on and so on. It is a cascade effect. Every point behind you will now be targeting a more manageable speed. So that's what you want to do. Just shift things a bit further back, or move to the right and move them a bit further down. That's essentially it. Try to, you know, spend an hour or two, figure things out. There's no rush. If you bought a card, you will have it for at least a year. You know, worst case scenario, if you are super crazy, you will have it at least for 1 year. So spending, you know, a couple of days, let's be honest, once you start tinkering, you will have fun with it, and, you know, a couple of days will pass. So once you spend a couple of days, you will have a card that is way more efficient. And obviously, we didn't even mention the differential in temperature, which is huge. You know, and that's not just temperature of the card, it's temperature of your room as well. Essentially, there is no benefit of running stock unless you really care about your energy provider and you want to make sure you consume as much power as possible. Just use an Undervolt. And yeah, these are my parameters. Once again, this is number 1. This is as efficient as possible. Number 2, over here, this is what I run for efficient games. Number 3 is what I run daily. Number 4 is when, for some reason, I want to see more than 2.7. I don't know. I'm feeling particularly insecure, maybe, and I need to see big numbers. And then number 5 is when I'm feeling properly insecure and I want to see even bigger numbers. Totally unnecessary, waste of energy. I never use it. I never actually use it. So that's it. Let me check my notes. I might have forgotten something. No. That's it. Memory, if you want to overclock memory, up to you. Doesn't have a huge change, but it also doesn't really affect the power consumption that much, so you can play around with it. But first, you know, dial in your core situation, then mess with that. Power limit, by the way, we didn't touch on that. Power limit does affect something. In my case, this specific 5090 is locked at 575 watts maximum. If I lift it, it's going to go all the way to 600. What this does is essentially ensure ever so slightly higher frequency. So let's see, 2715, I go up there, and this becomes 2722. Wow, massive gain. Let's go to 2947 with this profile. Let's improve power limit. And wow, 2955. Yeah, this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. If you're trying to achieve the best possible performance in 3D Mark something, whatever, use it. But now, you can leave power limit where it is. And I would also say do not mess around with power limit, like lowering power limit plus the Undervolt. Only bother with that for your number 1 profile, which will be the most energy efficient one. This was my first video. Forgive the lack of everything, really. It's all over the place. But I hope you've been able to see how an Undervolt behaves. Alright, that's it. Goodbye.